morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. On this lovely, bright Saturday morning, I'm thankful to be here. I hope you are too. I'm excited about doing this part two, um, a discussion of this book, because from the time we did this in, what was it, September, August? When we did it then, I had a level of understanding and freedom. Well, in this little bit of time, even more things have happened. So I'm excited. I'm excited because I've had time to live it even more. And the goal of what we do and why we're doing what we do is that we get to live it. That we don't just read it, we live it. You know, this is what Deron said many years ago, and I'm sure this didn't originate with him, but it did with a whole bunch of people who understood what's going on. And this is what they said: if you want to hide something from a black man, put it in a book. If you want to do that, put it in a book. And then after someone put it in a book, then when we progressed and moved forward, now we scared of certain books. We're relegated to only a particular book. When I met Ron, and you all those who know me know that this is true, because I've been saying this for years. He said, Jill, you have to read something of it in the Bible. Because that was it. And so, you know, I'm hoping that what God did for me in me surrendering to that moment, because again, when Deron first said it to me, I kicked back. This was over 30 years ago, but I kicked back. But I can tell you now, my kickback was my ego, because what I said and what I heard from that was, "You stupid, you're not smart, you're ignorant, so." Didn't say those words, but I responded to those words that I heard when someone asked me to read something other than the Bible. You know, there's a lot to be said, but you know, that's not the purpose of this. But in terms of all that we could really learn from having a discussion about that too. But the bottom line here is the desire to get us to where God wants us to be. And we all know that God didn't start with a book. It started with life, breath. And we're trying to get back to those things, right? To that right there. And I'm hoping that you would go on this journey. This is just a start. This is just something, a part of it. But I've heard enough responses from different people, and absolutely I can use my own particular situation, but I heard enough from particular people who at the end of the day, this is what they get to say. They love more, and their family, their husbands, their children, the people around them, they're able to see it. They don't know what they're looking at. They don't know how to identify or understand it other than using their own type of labels and their own kind of words. But all of those words equal this word, light. What they see is light. And when we live the life that we all really want to live and was purposed to live, you will have you won't try to shine light. You'll just be light. And we'll talk about that today, because I want to get into the discussions with so many other things that are just so important for us, and so much good food and good meat and a good diet for us to be on as we desire to become all that God wanted us to be. So I'm going to start with the first slide, which is discover your true identity. See that? Discover your true identity. Here are the questions. What does it mean to identify with something? What does that mean? Here's the answer. You look for yourself in. Whatever you identify with, it's bullet number 2. Put that back up. There were 2 bullets. The second bullet says this: you will find your identity, your sense of self, in what you identify with. I guess I did say that, didn't I? Take that down. It's important that we understand this part right here. Where are you looking to find yourself? Everyone's looking. You know how God said, seek the kingdom first. Everyone's seeking something, believing something. Where are you looking to find yourself? See, I think that, and I get that, and I feel that, and I understand that, and I get to live this now. I was looking, I just wasn't looking in the right places, didn't know how to look. And one of the things we talked about, and you'll get from this book, is in terms of looking, is the different things that you find your identity in. Because once you do that, you're going to attach yourself to those things. You know, I used to tell people, and this is the truth, I didn't have a dream house. I don't even know what that is. I didn't have a dream car. I didn't have a dream man. I didn't have a, you know, I just didn't do that. Am I telling somebody it's wrong? I am not. I'm not. I don't know what someone else will be doing. But I can tell you this about me. No, I didn't have my focus. See, today I can tell you, because things are happening. I was living. Sometimes when I thought I was living, I was actually surviving. Because I was just on some kind of frequency. But it's important for you to ask yourself that question. Where are you looking to find yourself? Things, roles, where are you looking? And the good thing, and what I want to introduce you today is, when you ask yourself that, don't force an answer. Don't force an answer. See, the beautiful thing about where we're going and what we're talking about in terms of asking and seeking God, God is a title, and seeking God, seeking what's the authority, the creator of all things. When we're seeking that, right? We're all looking for something. When we're seeking God, we're not just looking for something, but this is how you do it. Don't force an answer. I'm telling you, that's going to free your spirit. What we're doing here with this book reading, this discussion, all of these things that we're going to go through and talk about, it is absolutely, it's going to free your spirit from the limitations of this body. And this is when you're going to know a world that exists, and that's for you and I, above what the circles some of us have been going in. But the thing that happens with too many people, and too many of us, because of a habit, is that once we ask, we are now focused on the answer. We don't quite position ourselves to allow the answer to come to us. Because, and now you're going to have to trust this God that you say you have believed. Trust this God to be who he say he, she, it is. Because all kinds of things that you read, a lot of these things are just things that are given to you and I, so that we can understand this presence in this world. And this is why the goal is that we will not get locked into the shadow, the model, and miss the reality. This is what's been happening. So we so focused on the model, we talked about that a couple of Sundays ago, that the model is there for us to wake us up and cause our minds and our hearts to open, and our asking to open to that beyond this model, there's actually a reality. And so all of this right here is just, some of us have just been us being acquainted with the model. but we are not to identify and find our identity / essence in that model. That model, just like a statue, is not the breathing person. I don't care how many times you go down to the statue, the MLK statue downtown DC. It's a statue. It's a model. But it is not the man. It is not the essence of the man. It can remind you of the reality of the man, but that is not the reality. And I hope that example will just open your mind so that you can see this God that you say that you love and you care about. One of the things I said to somebody, I had a conversation with someone yesterday, and a good piece came out because they were frustrated with something that happened with a particular organization, and they were really upset. And they called me. Good thing to do, because they understood where they were. See, here's the blessing from that. When you are aware that you're about to do something, and you just do something different, call somebody, say, this is where I am. You confess where you are. You know what you do in those moments? You don't give ego an opportunity to strengthen itself. If you call the right person. But anyway, this person called me. And this is what I said, because I'm hoping that we get this, and then we'll get, I'm trying to clear out some space for some really good things to come in today. But I asked them, I said, if you consider that God is right here with you, even in this dark moment of yours, what would your response be? See, a long time ago, I would say something like this to myself. Jill, what you going to do? Because you know God is looking. See, that was me talking like a punisher, even to myself. That was God is looking, and then he gonna get you if you strike out this way. Now, what's the truth? If you sow it, you gonna reap it. That's for everybody. But today I say that differently. I say it from the point of God is love, and God loves you. And even then, of course, I would say God loves you, but actually walking in that, using the same language, but this time I'm conscious, not unconscious. That'll make sense to you if you're reading the book. So I said to her right now, if you consider that God is with you, this time I'm saying that God is for you. And I'm not telling you what's going to happen to that organization, and if they're going to do anything. It has nothing to do with that. It just has to do with this. God is right here. Because sometimes what we don't get is when we're responding a certain way, it's because we have lost sight of the fact that God is with us, even in this dark space, because the form, the created thing, is so tangible and reachable and seeable and touchable. And it meets all the senses of this physical being that our attention goes that way. So what am I saying? I'm praying that since I had this conversation with this person, and immediately something changed. Immediately. Because what often happens is when those thoughts get in, when whatever rides in on a thought of disappointment, a thought of you really needing something and someone not really understanding how intense your situation is, that voice get in, but it brings fear with it. It definitely doesn't bring faith with it. And so I pray today, again, that you position yourself, that whatever you're going through, just stop for a moment. Say, God, if I considered that you are dwelling with me, if I would say, Emmanuel, right now, God is with us, how much power would this situation have over me? How much How much of myself would I surrender to that thing? I promise you, you will do something different. It's just that small. It's just so, it's just the little things that cause us to look away from God because the noise is so loud. And it's loud because the noise, everything outside of us appeals to this natural person. All of our senses. Then they come together and the thing seems really big. And God said, I'm right here though. I'm right here. Don't handle this like you're alone. Just take them home. And remember, you're not alone. Because sometimes you don't want to call nobody, but you're still not alone. And if we can do that, we can let all the stuff that we're learning and doing change our lives. So I thought that was pretty good. Let's go to slide 2. Keep that up. Remember, in this book read, this is all me trying to get us through an introduction, and then we're going to break out in some rooms that have some discussions. But remember, this is discovering your true identity. And which we said, the last one is that, you know, is where are you looking to find yourself? So now I like to deal with a part of the identity crisis. This is what it says. This is a quote from the book. It says, "Your thinking, the content of your mind is, of course, conditioned by the past." If that's true to you, I don't know if it's a way that you can bing, hit the comments, or I don't know what can happen at this moment. But even if you do it with the only the angels and the Lord looking, do you agree with that? Your thinking, the content of your mind is, of course, conditioned by your past. Your upbringing, your culture, family background, and so on. Your thinking and the content of your mind is conditioned by all of the different relationships that you've been in, all of the roles, all of those things have conditioned you. Your thinking, the way you think, how you think, all of that has happened that way. Your upbringing, culture, family, background, and so on. The central core of all your mind activity consists of certain repetitive and persistent thoughts. See, once you get thoughts and emotions and reactive patterns, here's the word patterns, that you identify with most strong. This entity is the ego itself. Why is it important for me to have you to know this? Because I've talked to different people, and people are still trying to figure out what's the ego. What is the ego? It's that voice. It's the content of your mind. It is the content of your mind that has been conditioned by your past. See, there's a sign right here that I took off my wall just so you can see it. And I have it on my wall out in another room. But I brought it here, and this is what it says. Don't look back. You're not going that way. Don't look back. You're not going that way. But because of the voice that grew and strengthened itself through in all of our experience, we are that voice, that ego keeps us anchored to the past. So, yeah, I'm gonna say it again. Don't look back. You're not going that way. But even though we're not going that way, we still get anchored. You're still anchored to the energy of the past. The event is over. But the spirit of it, the energy of it, remember this, when it comes to energy, you can't outrun it. You can't snuff it out. You have two choices. You are either going to transfer that energy, which we are not trying to transfer bad energy from us to other people. Because if we're here to restore this world, then the way we take this energy, this level of energy, how does it leave this world? We transform it into something that brings life instead of death. That is more constructive than destructive. That will empower instead of destroy. And this is why the whole entity is the ego itself. Because it is living and surviving off of all of those things that you identify with. One of the things I said this, listen, what did it say? In reactive patterns that you identify with most strong. See, if you stop for a moment, and the same is as the person I spoke to yesterday who absolutely changed in that conversation, didn't last that long. But the good thing to do when you get there and one of these people who are now in this awareness, in this awakening, in this space of God, when you call one of these particular sisters or brothers who already are doing the work on themselves and they are open and awake. See, the important thing to do is when you get there, it's not done. When, if I use my example from yesterday, when the person gets to the place where I say, God through me, truth through me, say, what would you do if you consider that God is right here? See, we say and we hear Emmanuel, God dwell among men, but we do not align our decisions and our responses to that truth. See, that truth has to be our truth in our darkness, not just in our light. When we're feeling as if we're not getting what we want or getting what we think we need, Emmanuel, God is with us. And internalize that eternal statement. Internalize it. It'll get you a long way. One of the things that is great, write this down if you can, Romans 7:18, and ask yourself a question. I'm not going to do it on here right now. But this has stuck with me over the years, and now it makes even more, it's more clearer in terms of how to live it out these days for me. And it was Paul writing in Romans 17. He said, for I know that in me, that is in my flesh, nothing good dwells. For to will is present with me, but how to perform what is good, I do not find. That is, I believe, the New King James Version, probably. But what did I want you to hear from this? This is Paul saying to someone, for I know that in me, I'm calling it ego, that is in my flesh, nothing good dwells. See, until I come to the place where I accept this with my whole heart, where we accept this, nothing good dwells there, you're going to stop trying to find yourself in it. See, we unfortunately, right, we want to kind of like cherry pick. I like this part, but I didn't like that part. This part stays, that part goes. And we do those kind of things, but everybody knows a piece of fresh fruit will turn rotten if it's not eaten soon enough, and then when you eat that fruit, it's gone. What is my point for saying that? Because sometimes when we pick it, you're just picking a good fruit that's going to be rotten soon. And you can't do nothing but a piece of fruit, but eat it within a certain time. You can't save it but so long. Even if it looks fresh to you. What's my point here? Paul says this, for I know that in me, that is in my flesh, in my old nature, nothing good dwells. Are you ready to form an agreement with that statement right there? Sit with it. Find out what it means to you, what it's going to mean to you to walk this out. Because when that becomes true, then I'm able to deal appropriately and properly with that place in those things that I identify with, i.e. find my identity in. Because most of us are not looking for our identity in anything that we don't think is good. So Paul just went and counseled his whole self out. In this area, we got to cancel some things out. See, this is no attachments for me. That's how that works for me, Jill. You know. See, to say that nothing good lives here is to say it from the point of the spirit. Because if you say nothing good lives here, unfortunately, your ego is still going to speak. How do you know your ego is speaking? Because it is your ego that's going to look at something and deem it good or bad. So we have to take this word good because we kind of focus on the fact that we really know the difference between good and bad at the root of things. That we know that much. So nothing good lives in this flesh. Paul said in another space, the flesh counts for nothing, the spirit counts for everything. There it is, right? Now, when you put these two together, now you get to see that Paul is making a statement here, but in another letter to another church, he would say, nothing good. The flesh counts for nothing. It's the spirit that counts for everything. That way, I'm not saying there's nothing good in his flesh, and then I'm in a big empty room. No. There's nothing good that lives in this flesh. And I'm in a room where I am not identified. I'm not finding my identity in any of these things that I see, and what I hear, and what I can touch, and what somebody said with some word. I'm not finding my identity in those things that pass away. But listen. But the room isn't empty. It's just empty of all of those things that make that I found some good in, some identity in. There's somebody who you might miss out on your whole life because your goal is I'm going to be a good mother. Well, listen, I'm grandmothering right now. I'm not going to be the same kind of mother I was. Even though my daughter would love for me to be as intentional as I was as a mother. I am as intentional, but we're in a new space. And sometimes we parent and we don't leave those old spaces. Why is that? Because the content of our mind and our thinking has always been conditioned by something. All things must evolve to survive. To live, not survive, to live. It's first to survive, but it's to survive so that they can live. It must evolve. So in this case, what was the identity crisis? Here's the crisis. You're trying to find your identity in natural things. One of the things we saw on, and I had this on Sunday when we read 1 Corinthians 15. What it said in there was this: in all, Adam died. And what that means, every one of us who identify with Adam, what was Adam? The man of the earth. For every one of us who find our identity in any of this stuff on earth, you're going to die. Go back and read it. Maybe I'll talk about it again tomorrow. I don't know. But in all, what does that mean? In all, Adam died. Every one of us who find our identity and has settled in the sense, in the creation of this natural, in this human side, you're going to die. In that same space, this is what Jesus said. Paul said about Jesus, or in terms of what Jesus came to do. He said, that was when he said, this was the last enemy. The last enemy to be defeated is death. The last enemy. When you get to the point, and I get to the point, that nothing can kill the real you. Because there's no death in that spiritual space. It's transformation. It's various manifestations. It is a burning bush one day, a donkey talking for God another day, a man talking, an angel talking. You have all of those, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. You have all of those manifestations. One spirit, God. The spirit never dies. So when we can loosen up, I'm getting ready now. When you can start allowing yourself to break your old agreements with seeking the kingdom of this life versus the kingdom of God, something's going to change for you. But until you make this decision, you will continue to find your identity in things that are temporal. And every time you look for your identity in something that's temporary, the ego has to kick in, because the ego does not have, that does not own the place of consciousness, awareness, eternal life, and it's constantly trying not to die. When you get to the place where death can't conquer you, death can only conquer you because you got your mind in His works. And in the purpose of the resurrection, right, is to help you let go of that, so you can get on with your human being instead of your human dying, human doing. You can get to the being side, and we'll talk about that. Slide 3. Most of what we're going to talk about today, just in case you want to know, was in chapter 3. Chapter 3 was really heavy with some good groundbreaking, root pulling things that challenged our thinking, challenged how we think. And so if you want to just, because I'm only pulling out pieces, don't take that down. I'm only pulling out pieces, but if you want to know where a lot of these quotes are coming from today, it's chapter 3. Here we go. Slide 3. The I, ego, consists of thought and emotion, of a bundle of memories you identify with as me and my story. That's all I just talked about, right? Some of us are we don't know, you find your identity in your story. See, not in there's a my story, and then there's a redemption story. And a redemption story is not going to find its heaviness on who did what to you. It's going to find it in the human sense. It's going to find its weightiness in where the who did what for you is God, and not the who did what to you being people. Because God would have allowed you to transform that energy, and the story, which is really gone, and the energy that has to be transformed, that is being transferred, it will stop. Here we go. The I, ego, consists of thought and emotion in a bundle of memories you identify with as me and my story. Where are you? Here's the question I asked earlier. Where are you looking to find yourself? You're looking into your story. Then we go to the Bible, because we understand that this has to be bigger than our story. Then we go to the Bible, and we want to look at Sarah's story. So you got to know the difference between Sarah's story and God in Sarah's story. So now we a little bit of identity theft going on, and we claiming Sarah's life. Take that down for a minute, because I want to say this once and for all. In the kingdom, you know what your government ID is? It's your fingerprint. Do you have the same fingerprint as Sarah? You do not. David, you do not. Do you have the same creator? Yes, you do. Are you loved by being led, and is that same spirit dwelling with you? Yes. But I think God is so that there are no words to say that there is not one person ever created who will ID as you just by your fingerprints. I mean, there are other ways too, DNA, okay? But when there was no DNA, understanding or technology didn't allow us to know what we know today, there was that thumbprint, that fingerprint. Thumb finger, whatever. I just like to say thumb. So try hard as you may, God has already worked that part out. You cannot be anyone else. You have a whole different identification based on this outwardly, this particular suit. God said, make no mistakes. You can't be nobody but you. I don't care how much you try. And just in case you forget, check your thumbprint. So what's my point to you? That is your that if you want to know an ID where someone can identify you without error, it's that. That's how good. That's how magnificent God is. And that's why we are saying, God, we want to know you. We want to be connected to you. We want you. We're not finding our identity in other people. We're finding you in other people, and then we identify with you. This is why Sarah got a story, but then there's a redemption story. They all have stories. But what we benefit from is the redemption story. That's when God interacted with them. So don't go hijack their life. You don't have to. God gave you your own something special. But because we won't allow ourselves to grow and evolve, and we keep, trying to hold on to a tradition or certain things, what did Jesus have to say to the people? Listen, God fixed that for all of us. He called it a new covenant. It's really easy to cross over. It's just that, we identify with so many of these things that somewhere along the line, our identity is so into the things that's created, that men are doing, that people can do, that we have lost our sense of identity with the Creator. Well, that's where I'm traveling. I ain't going back. I'm not looking back. I'm not going that way. And I hope the same is true for you. Let's go back to slide 3. So the ego consists of thought and emotion of a bundle of memories you identify with. That's it right there. It's what you are identifying with in your memories, in which part of your world something happened. Memories you identify with as me and my story. I got a story to tell. Okay, well, hopefully it's a redemption story. Me and my story of habitual roles you play without knowing it. See, there's some roles you play and you don't even know you're playing that role. So even as a role as a friend, as a person, I say I am loyal to the truth. Because I had to take a position, because sometimes you play roles without knowing it. Because sometimes the pressure from people's personalities, and which is made up of their own background, come into your space, and it can feel like war. But this is what I told my daughter. I'll tell you, the truth always works. It also hurts, but it always works. And I'm not talking about the truth told from my ego. I'm talking about the truth told from my spirit. I had to learn that one too. It says this, that we identify with me and my story of habitual roles you play without knowing it, of collective identifications, such as nationality. Look at all the roles: husband, uncle, brother, Black man, white man, this man, that man, nationalities, race, religion, social class, political allegiance. It also contains identification not only with possessions. There we go. See, all of those things. Some people identify with their possessions. My dream home. Well, are you going to lose your identity if you lose your dream home? You might. Because you have these multiple personal identifications, collective identification, which is group identifications, identifying with possessions. Then it says also with opinions, external appearance. These are all the things we can find our identity in. Long-standing resentments. Some of us find our identity, because I'm the kind of person that, huh? See, that energy, oftentimes when it comes, it's a fight huff energy, it's a warring energy. And this is how you can kind of tell that somewhere along the line there was an offense. That's what I'm gonna call a long-standing resentment. And that offense energy is in these new relationships. But now that the person has found their identity in it, because I'm the kind of person that, some of that has been us, baby, at one time in our lives. Listen, long-standing resistment or concepts as yourself as better than or not good as others. Sometimes it's success or failure. Take that down. That's a big one right there. That's a big one, because this is all of these things are the things, the places that ego attaches itself to, and hope that you would attach yourself to all of these things, and that you will find your identity in it, because the only identity you're going to find in these things is an ego disguising itself as the real you. And it's going to look like the real you. You know why? Because it's going to, because of your thinking and the stories and the condition of your past and your upbringing and your family background. So, of course, it's going to be familiar. It knows your story. Not necessarily your redemptive story, because you got to let that out. But it knows your story. Remember, when we're dealing with this book about purpose, I think I brought the big word. Did I bring it down here with me? Okay, I must have left it on tape, because I have a hard copy of it too. But the point here is, listen, that true identity of yours, we can go into a breakout room in 1 minute, right? That true identity of yours is right there, waiting for you to discover, seek it. And you can discover it, but you gotta change where you're looking for yourself. Sometimes you're looking for yourself for your kids. You're looking for your kids to make sense of your life. You're looking for what you did for your kids and how they respond to what you did for them to give you worth. And when it doesn't happen that way, it feels like lack. Why? Because we have found our identity in so many different things. But we coming out. We ain't looking back, because we ain't going that way. So listen, here's the 2 questions that's based on the roles, habits, and identifiers. Here's the 2 questions that came from that. Is this: what does it mean to you to identify with your story? And then how might identifying or finding yourself in it, should have been in it, keep ego alive? That's your question. So when you find yourself in your story, how is that to you with your example? Because I can give you more than a few with me. Let's go and think about that. Let's go to the breakout room for a minute. We'll come back. All right. So I guess I would like to hear someone's response to questions from the breakout room. If anybody wants to share, please do.
For me, Jill, the question, what does it mean to me to identify with my story? I think I'm answering both questions as well, but it just gives me an excuse, or it helps me to justify where I am. Just keeps me stuck in a place, in a dark place, really. And it doesn't always feel like it's a dark place, but it makes me feel, like Will said, I feel puffy. And it stops me from moving forward. That's one of the things that we said, most of us said in our group discussion, that it just keeps me from moving forward.
Good stuff. Anyone else before I move on?
I think it also left us in a place, some of us, me, in a place where it's like, that's definitely who I was. I mean, and I would say it that New Yorkers tell stories and all this other stuff, and you got to give the whole story. You got to set it up and all this other stuff. So now that it's been identified that, okay, that's your ego, then it's like, I don't obviously have nothing to say, so I'm definitely stuck with that, but it's a good stuff.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Anyone else?
Hey, Jill, I was going to say that I was sharing with the group that I'm not sure who I am. All of my, not all, a lot of my motivations are ego-based, ego-driven. Some of the things that I say, so I'm searching for my true identity as far as who I am and what motivates me. I mean, it's questioning the roles that you play, you being husband, son, the good son, being the perfect person that works that does this work. It's a lot of it's are roles and not necessarily who my true identity is.
Good stuff. All right, we're gonna bring it back to me. Thank you for sharing. It's great because one of the things that was said on the last person who shared, and that is what motivates me. See, that brings us back to where God has us in God-fearing, God-centered, and spirit-led. See, when we're going through this right here, when we're going through this book, I did find it, so this is, found this on my shelf. I done had it for years. Didn't read it. Lord have mercy. But it starts with God fear. Because on our way to spirit led, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. And what does that mean? You're not even going to be able to really hear in a certain place without an acknowledgement and a respect for God and openness. And how does that dance look that hinders? Because for so long, right? You ego driven, ego tripping, not knowing it, because guess what? People say God knows my heart. Okay, the ego knows your story too. As a matter of fact, the ego lives in your story. That which we're going to learn is no big. The big deal is that ego tries to use your stories to keep itself alive. Is that it keeps you identifying with that story. Stop identifying with it and let it just be a story, something that happened, and let it fade. Just like right now, I have a lot of trees, and guess what? The leaves not the same color. The trees aren't as full as they were in the summer. The trees are going to be stripped down, and then the leaves are going to grow back. What's my point? These same leaves are not going to grow back. Some new leaves are going to come back. These leaves just they have to turn colors, they have to fall, they have to do whatever they can do for the earth. And the tree just has to understand that there will be new leaves. That means you got to let it pass. You got to let seasons pass. You got to let things pass. And so that's hard to do if you don't understand that the voice, the thoughts, you should have to let it go. There's a term that says thoughts are fleeting. Then you have to let the fleeting take place. Versus what we do is we grab onto the thought, right? We identify with the thought, we make it who we are, or we find ourselves in it, as we said in the beginning, that wherever you find your identity, your sense of self is what you identify with. So whatever you identify with, you from this standpoint, you're gonna find something. You're gonna find your identity in. And what is that? You're gonna look for yourself in. You're gonna try to be the good son, but perhaps when it's time to be a good something else. And we're gonna get to that because we're going into the being side of your existence. Let's go to slide 5. Here we go. A human, a being. I want you to see that. See, you are a human being. You are a being that is using this human body in this atmosphere for a purpose. But you are not just a human, but you are a human being. That's going to make pretty good sense. Because I feel it needs to be peeled back a piece a little bit, but it will. Here we go. Spiritual realization is to see clearly that what I perceive, experience, think, or feel is ultimately not who I am. What you experience, what you perceive, what you think, and what you feel is ultimately not who you are. And you know why you can know that? Because all of those things that I just talked about, all those are part of your senses. A part of your earthly self. It's part of what your body, your physical body needs in order to make sense and do some things in this world. For communication and discernment and understanding, you need all of those. I like to call them all languages. See, it's a language to me. It's a communication. I like to call it all learning, all communication. But the bottom line is that is not who you are. That's the human side. But there's a being side. And somehow the being has gotten lost in the human side. And the human side has become greater than the being side. The human side, which is temporary, has become greater than the being side that is eternal. And our only goal is not only goal, but a great place to be, to grow, is to understand the difference between your choice now is, do you want eternal life or do you want temporal? Because once you understand that the human side and everything about it is transient and temporal, you'll stop trying to be anchored by something that is meant to change. It is meant to come into this world. It is meant to leave by a certain time. And you'll stop chasing and then trying to hold down and hold on to something that you think is slipping away. It's not slipping. It was designed to do that. It's designed to do that. So you're looking to human temporary things to satisfy something, an eternal lack, and that's the problem. But that's an old problem because we're done with that. Don't look back. You're not going that way, right? Here we go. Spiritual realization is to see clearly that what I perceive, your own perception, based on your own experiences, right? Experience and think or feel is ultimately not who I am. And I cannot, here we go. I just said, and I cannot find myself in all those things that continuously pass away. I just said on that. That's what transient means. And you're trying to find yourself in something that's meant to fade. Don't take it down. This is what the Apostle Paul said. He said, prophecies, they'll cease. Tongues, all that'll cease. But love will never fail. It'll always this and always that and always this. And all the particulars he put with that. See, even when Paul is trying to tell people, God is trying to tell folks whose tradition, and we're here right now, whose tradition is getting in the way of their being. And God called it a new covenant. Someone say a renewed covenant. Renewed, new is in there. And we won't allow ourselves to see the reality about this creator is that leaves come, leaves go. More leaves come, more leaves go. But we want to resist that. And then be attached to things. And then find our identity in them and then try to make them fit in a space that they don't fit because those things are meant to pass away. Here's the second bullet. When Jesus said, deny thyself, if the self is ego, if the self or ego were truly who I am, it would be absurd to deny. What do I think about that? You think about what you should think about that because I don't want to tell you how to think, but I can tell you what I think. And what I think is, if Jesus told you to deny yourself, I think I said that on this is Wednesday, Sunday, whenever I taught last Sunday. And that is, well, what stuff were you denying? So if you love this Bible and the God of this Bible, then listen to this part. Live it. Then how do you do this right here? What's the self? See, if folks would just, if we were all just stop trying to hold on to something that's meant to pass away, meant to evolve, meant to improve, not the basis of what God said and what God wanted to do, it'll never need to be improved because it was perfect when he did it. That's why we could read and say that from Genesis to Revelation, God wanted fellowship with men. That intention never changed. Even though man had caused God to have to take another route, but God never left the path. And sometimes we don't see that God is not leaving his path. You're confused. There's no confusion in this love, in this God part. There's no confusion. You know how somebody said, when you want to find the truth, follow the money. You want to find God, follow the truth. Seek that kingdom of truth. And all the other stuff you trying to find, you trying to add to your life, God said, I'll do all that'll come. Just let go. You are a human being. Being what? And we'll talk about that. Here we go. Third bullet. What remains is the light of consciousness in which perceptions, experiences, thoughts, and feelings come and go. All right, I just said that. See, this is how you know. While I'm saying this to you, listen to this. I'm not reading what's next. My point is, when you get in that consciousness path, in that space, your next thought will be the next thought of truth and consciousness. So you'll find yourself explaining something, talking about something that you're getting ready to say, without having to follow this, follow the bullets on your paper, because it is the spiritual progression. Once you allow God and love and God to have your mind over your experiences. For God to have you, this is why the first commandment is always going to be, you have to love God with all of that self. Heart, mind, soul. You're going to have to let go of all of these experiences and all of these conditions past and all of those things so you can fall. And it starts with this: to fear God, the understanding and the recognition that God is among us is the beginning of wisdom. The fear of God, the respect of that spiritual world and that truth is the beginning of the wisdom that you're looking for. But it starts right here. It starts with God being first, God fearing, God centered. Then you'll be spirit led. It is the spiritual progression of things. Here we go. What remains is light, is the light of consciousness, is which perceptions, experiences, and thoughts and feelings come and go. That is being. That is the deeper truth. What's that? What is being? Being is anything you ing is movement. It is continuing. That's why when I used to do queen bee, I used to put the dot, dot, dot. That's what that dot, dot, dot means. It wasn't a period. It was, and so on. Beyond this. Here we go. That is the being. See, you can see human, but then there is a being. Your spiritual self, that's a being. When people think about UFOs and Martians or whatever they did, saw in their minds or actually saw, See, they would say it was some kind of being. Just wasn't a human being. Come on now. Y'all ready to get free in your mind and in your spirit? Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's get to know the God, the light that is our true life. And the life that is truly light. Here we go. When I know myself as that, as a being, whatever happens in my life is no longer of absolute, but only of relative importance. It's transient. It came into my space for whatever reason. You know, you figure out sooner or later or someday it came into your space, but it ain't nothing that you have to hold on to. That's big. When you just let this stuff be. It's the isness. Listen. See, my question would have been, and you think, what are your thoughts related to knowing yourself as being? With a capital B. I'm going to read this one again. Last bullet. Once you go through all of these other things where you deny yourself and you realize that self, that ego, it says what remains is the light of consciousness. That's spirit led now. It is the spiritual progressing of saying yes to God, of non-resistance. It will happen automatically. It's just that sometimes it doesn't happen at night, overnight. I mean, if you now you want to go bootleg Abraham and Sarah's story, bootleg that part, 99 years waiting on God. Bootleg that. Go identify with the fact that they waited and God came through. So God was not on a time clock. That's what you take away from that. God, if this is what you're going to do, you're going to do it. You're going to do it. I don't have to worry. Take that down. You hear when Jesus says, listen, if God is going to clothe these flowers, they're not even, they come and go. What is he going to do for you? You who is a human and a being. So I pray that you know yourself as a being, so you understand what God, why your flesh can count for nothing. But why God ain't, your flesh is a vehicle, so that you're being used as transportation. You're being used in this world so that God can restore what's necessary for the restoration of this world. See, God didn't say, God said his son to restore the earth, the world. Whatever world or worlds, plural. I'm sent to this one. I don't know all that's out there, but I'm definitely sent to this one. How do I know? Because I have the suit that allows me to live in this world. Everybody knows that when an astronaut goes into outer space, they cannot go in this flesh. They have to have a special suit made to go and participate and walk in that other place, world. This is your suit that God has set your being in to survive in this atmosphere. We know it's true. That's why you don't have gills. But that is why fish have gills. Because for fish to be able to survive in the environment that God wants them to survive in, they needed a suit. They need to be suited for that. How many of you agree? And if you take a fish out of water and you take it out of the environment that it is suited for, it will die. It will die. And it's the same here. It's the same here. We have this is not our everlasting environment. So we will die. Where we will live forever, like the fish in the sea, will live a good period of time, longer in that space than in this space, than on earth. So it is with us. and your spirit will continue to live. But God's intention, God has an intention. And sometimes that ego gets in the way of God's intention. And we don't, and we find ourselves on another page. Let's go to the next slide. Then Moses said to God, indeed, when I come to the children of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, what is his name? Here you go. How do you identify yourself? When I go to them, give me an identifier. Y'all better hear this. This is what God said. And then Moses said, he said, and they say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, I am who I am. What does that mean? I be. So listen to this. I'm going to say it this way, just so this will make sense to you. You are a human guarding. You are a human guarding. You are a human lighting. You are a human lifing. I be. What happens? I am who I am is another way of saying I be. So these are just questions to Exodus 3:13-14. Slide 7 will say this. I am who I am is another way of saying I be. My question would have been, what are some benefits of God not using a label or identifier to define essence? I'm going to come back to that or let you answer that some other way, because that's some thought right there. But there are benefits to you not being labeled. Remember? Because typically when we do that, I'm gonna say it again to make sense. When I find listen, whatever I identify with, that's what I'm gonna find my identity. So in this statement, I am who I am is another way of saying I be. What does I be mean for me? And what could it be for you? You could be a whole lot of things. God could be a burning bush. God could be thunder. All kinds of manifestations. But what happens when you let someone come and say to you, this is my uncle. If you're not careful, then that's all they want you to be. You know this is right. When somebody put those labels on you, I'm not saying to just identify. Take that down. Thank you. See, this is why I don't love labels. Not because they don't help us in some kind of way, because there is necessary to have some level of identity in this world. That's why there's a little trouble out here now with these pronouns, because what makes it difficult is I see you, you have all of the attributes of a female, and then somebody can be offended if I say she. Nobody means to offend anybody, but we only know what we see. And so now that's a war. Some kind of war. But I understand the broader thinking of spirit. And the broader thinking of spirit in this IB part is somebody saying, dealing with identity and identifying. To each his own. But I can tell you why it's difficult. We guess what a lot of us don't want to do when we fill out those forms that says, are you American, African American, Asian, Hispanic, and may have had other. I don't know. Because we found out that what people do when they use labels and put us in categories, then it's somebody's experience, right? Somebody was able to hinder a person based on their opinion about the category, the label, where the purpose of it, the benefit of it long time ago is because it helps us communicate and it helps people to organize, to count, to know what's the census, how many people are African American, because this is people, humans with human limitation doing our best to navigate peacefully in this world. But the ultimate situation with this is because ego is also prevalent, then that same thing that may have helped better something has now became a useful tool in the hands of someone who has some motives outside of love, which is having the everyone's best interest in mind as best as you possibly can. And so when I like to say this, so when Moses said to God, well, what should I say about you, right? To them, so they can recognize you when they show up, when you show up. God said, they don't know. See, because I'm a be. I'm going to be whatever that situation requires me to be. Why is that? Because this God said, this my goal is to restore mankind back to fellowship with me. And whatever that looks like, that's what I'm going to do. If that looks like Jews sitting with Gentiles, that's what I'm going to do. That's somebody else who think they first and first forever. You know what God said to people through Jesus? You didn't choose me, I chose you. So stop thinking that somewhere along the line, your choices affect what God does with people a certain way. You didn't choose God. You didn't even know to choose God. This is God being. So learn how to be. But you got to let go of this world. You got to let go of this mindset, this old order. You know, people problem with the problem is, somebody think that God was one and done. God said, I am one and done in my world, but not with yours. I use who I want to use. I have grace on who I want to have grace on. All you need to know is I came to restore. And if you get past your feelings and your thoughts and your emotions, and know that none of those things control God when he is doing God, when he is guarding, being, God will use any of those things. In any kind of way he wants to use. See, think about this. Think about who Christ had to be to be that person who fed, who was gentle, who said, talked about his gentleness, and didn't know who to be when those tables need to be turned. Okay, let me say this. When God was manifesting himself that way. When God was saying to people, how did my house become a den of thieves? This is supposed to be a house of prayer. Now here's the beautiful thing. Jesus wasn't responding off of nothing old. Jesus was responding off of something that was already said through David. So that was already in the space. So he wasn't going solo, rogue. But how are you gonna get to be if opinions of man, because of what they see? Can you imagine what somebody saw when that was happening? But Jesus had to be okay with that. Because this wasn't something he just made up. There was roots to this. So my point to you in this, and when we're talking about this, is this being part. Okay. So we listen, Jill and everybody else, Soul Factory, and anybody else listen, we done enough human being. It's time to do some being. It's time to do some being. It's time to clothe yourself with Christ. Being. It's time to realize that this is a suit, but also your spirit is suited to accomplish God's will in this world. See, of course, I'm not saying that we are where God is, when he says, I am who I am. But I do want you to see that I am who I am is another way of saying I be. And it's another way of saying, listen, what do these people want me to identify with? I'm not. This is God. This is pure spirit. This isn't flesh speaking. Where the flesh is concerned, whatever suit you have in terms of what I see, that's all I know. But remember who Moses is talking to. There was no natural sense. Remember, this God was manifested through a bush, but God is not a bush. He was being at that moment. Just, and this is what what I pray that, God will give me the opportunity. And us an opportunity to know what it's like to be about that life. So he was asked, and God responded, I am who I am. I'm who I am. Listen, when you stop identifying with all those particular roles in the spirit, in the sense of what your spirit is going to be like, and you accept the fact that if I could say this, I can't be anybody else. And if I'm confused about whether I can be somebody else, all I got to do is go take a print of my thumb. And no one else on this whole earth will have that identity. And that's a God identity right there. And it may be manifesting itself through the flesh, but that's a God identity. That, there are no words for how huge, so many human beings, and not one. I have no words. I have no words. And this is what I'm saying. That God right there who could do that right there, who, which I read, I hope, I don't know how true it is, but that the same thing with zebras. No striped parrot is exactly the same. Who's not gonna bow down to that? Who's not gonna bow to that? What are some benefits of God not using a label or identifier to define essence? That's who you be. That way you can be like the wind. You can change courses, you can do this, you can, because the bottom line goal never changes. But when you try to be Christian or be just be black, I mean, you can love, you can do other things beyond beyond how someone defined that. That's we try to define. This is Moses. This is where God schooled Moses. All Moses knew was to ask, well, what should I say to them? How do I speak to people about you? When you show up, how will they recognize you? What would they look for? All I can say is from there is this. What was God gonna do? Give himself a label? Now he'll tell you, I'm like this, I'm this, I'm that, I'm, at that, They already understood that, God was a compassionate God. They knew that. But what happens is, how do you define compassion? You think that God was not compassionate when he said, when his son suffered, when you suffer? When God is not being compassionate to you, he's using you to be compassionate in the whole world. It's so much bigger. But when we do this one little ego thing, this little individual something, then we see ourselves, we don't see ourselves in the grand scheme, in the bigger picture. And that's how we stay away from something that we're thirsting for. Because we don't see ourselves in the big picture, because the way the world now is orchestrated and what is happening in the world right now is with social media, everybody trying to make a name for themselves. And that's just what's being offered. God is being offered this truth that I'm talking about. It's being offered too. But you got to see this. This is like that whisper that can be heard in the midst of all that noise. But you got to want to get there, and you got to want this God. Let's go to slide in. Listen, whatever form ego takes, the unconscious drive behind ego is to strengthen the image of who I think I am. The phantom self that came into existence, listen to that. The phantom self came into existence when thought, a great blessing as well as a great curse, began to take over and obscured the simple yet profound joy of connectedness with being. There it is right there. See, I told you all of it. Just said all that. All of what I just said. And that is that this thing began to take over, that's the point, take over, and obscure the simple yet profound joy of connectedness with being, the source with God. We have lost that connection in all of these other identities. In identifying with all of these different roles and all of this stuff, and like we have lost connectedness with being. So you're a human being, but we're doing a lot of humaning. I just pray that we do some being. And what that's mean? That's what that being is, what our spirit life looks like. Whatever behavior the ego manifests, the ego manifests behavior too. I want you to know that. It manifests a behavior as well. Whatever behavior the ego manifests, the hidden motivation force is always the same. Remember this. The motivating force of the ego is always the same. The need to stand out. See, social media, this is what you got to do in order. Okay, all right. You better know why you doing that humaning. All I'm saying is make sure your being is stronger than your human side. I'm not saying nobody can go in that space. I'm saying when you go in that space, like Christ came into this space, had to be in there with rejection and popularity and then not being popular. But what did Christ have that we didn't have? He understood that he was more being than human. How do we know that? Because he said, I do and I say everything that the Father told me to say. You think he never hear Mary and Joseph talking? He grew up with sisters and brothers. You don't hear none of that. You don't hear that story. You hear God's redemptive story about Jesus' life. That's what we read about in the Bible. But you don't hear my story, my Mary story, my being raised by Mary and Joseph story. You don't hear his me story. So you and I can do this thing, but it's a lot of humaning going on and not enough being. A lot of ego manifestation and expression and not enough of the being side. Because you are that. You are a human and you are a being. You want to call it angel? You want to call it light? You want to call it God offspring? You are a being. You're not just an earthly man or woman. Here we go. It says this. A great blessing as well as a great curse began to take over and obscure the simple yet profound joy of connectedness with being the source of God. Whatever behavior the ego manifests, the hidden motivating force, somebody talked about that motivation earlier, is always the same. The need to stand out. The need to be special. Every time you talk about somebody mistreating you or feeling unimportant, it's the need to be special. When you go on too much importance, it's the need to stay special. It's still the same thing. Whether you inflate yourself or deflate yourself, is you and yourself, one way or the other. One way or the other, you still think about yourself. The human self, not the being. That's a self too. That's why Jesus can tell you there is a self, lose this life for another life. So we know there's two lives, so to speak. Here we go. The need to stand out, to be special, to be in control. What you trying to be in control? See, if you would just say, God, right now, if I live like you're right here with me, see, that'll help you with the control that you don't know that you're trying to have. You and that control isn't, something where you're trying to hurt anybody. It's just that you don't like the fact that you don't have control. It's not happening your way. So you didn't control the situation that you planned to go like this, and that. It didn't go according to your plan. Therefore, you don't have control. So now the ego is you're going to either be human and manifest that, or a being and allow God to manifest light in the situation. God, you're here right here. There's darkness here, but you're here too. Right now, God, that doctor seems bigger than you. But what did you say, God? The kingdom of God is like a mustard seed. You don't have to be that big, but you're gonna be big. You're gonna be big when I surrender to you. This is gonna be big for the being side, even though compared to the doctors right now, it looks like a mustard seed. It's very small. That's why Jesus would say, listen, if you had faith the size of a mustard seed, you can look at the darkness that is as big as a mountain. And tell it, not today, ego. No, stand down. And it will stand down. But what is the missing piece in so many of our lives? That we have not embraced that God is dwelling with men. It was his desire. Ain't nobody gonna stop that. There's nothing that's going to stop that. But my own resistance and not letting it happen. Here we go. The need to stand out, to be special, to be in control, the need for power, for attention, for more. There's more things you can't even list. But in his case, for more. Somebody who needs more. It's never enough. It's never enough. The ego is going to continue to manifest itself in these ways. And maybe there's some things unlisted, but the light will let you know that what happened in your life that may not be on this list, but the light will let you know. The light will let you know what you're thirsting for. Here we go. And of course, the need to feel a sense of separation, that is to say, the need for opposition and enemies. Take that. Those are all ego manifestations. If you're not poor, then I'm not rich. If you're not broken in me, then if you're broken in me, then I'm not the worst person. So this is how we find our self-worth in our comparison to other people. That's how we normalize ourselves. But God says it doesn't have to be that way. Listen, I'm gonna read this last one. I had some other things to do, but I'm not gonna do it right now because I wanted to end at 1:00 and we're at 1. But I wanna do this. Let me see. Yeah, I'm gonna go about 5 minutes. I wanna read these things. I'm just gonna go through it because I think it's very important since this is the last particular book discussion. Here we go. Let's go to slide 9. Read it now. When the ego is at war, know that it is no more than an illusion that is fighting to survive. There it is. Nothing but an illusion. That illusion thinks it is you. It is not easy at first to be there as the witnessing presence. That's your being. Especially when the ego is in survival mode or some emotional pattern, there we go, from the past has become activated. There you go. Something didn't happen. Somebody didn't say something. You didn't get your way. whatever you feel didn't happen at that moment, that was an emotional pattern that has been activated from the past. All you gotta do is know so that you won't react or respond to it. Here we go. But once you have had a taste of it, you will grow in presence power. Listen, when the ego, let me say, is in survival mode or some emotional pattern from the past has become activated. Let me go back. It is not easy at first to be there as the witnessing presence, especially when the ego is in survival mode or some emotional pattern from the past has become activated. But once you have had a taste of it, a taste of what? Presence. You will grow in presence power. This is what we try to do. We trying to grow in being. That's presence power. You know what God is saying? When I get to them, I'm gonna be present. Who am I? This is who I'm gonna be. So I'm gonna be present. Trust that. Trust that whatever I'm supposed to be in the space, I'm gonna be that. No worries. No worries. See, we want to know God who. Do you want to know who God is going to be when He comes, or do you want to know that when God comes into your space, He's going to be exactly what's needed to be? Isn't that what you really want? But that mind, that information that need to kind of get back in control because you feel out of control wants to know something. I said, when I show up, I'm going to be something. And I'm going to be exactly what you need me to be, even if you don't know that. I'm going to be exactly. Sometimes God will be quiet when you want Him to talk. Even Jesus said, why have you forsaken me? I said, you right now I'm not talking. Because right now, that's what I need you to grow in faith, grow in trust. So I'm not talking right now. That ain't punishment. That is preparation for presence power. Here we go. Once you have had a taste of it, you will grow in presence power, and the ego will lose its grip on you. Once you have had a taste of the witnessing presence, once you have gone and understood that these emotional patterns that you're going through is your past being activated, and it is absolutely the ego in survival mode. Once you accept that, see, the beautiful thing is when you go into that panic, you can take that as a witness to say, you know what, you know what's going on right now? That ego is in survival mode. Let me stand down so that I can have presence power. Let me stand down from that so that I will give ego an opportunity to restore itself, strengthen itself. Let me stand down so presence can have a power in my life over the power that ego has had in my life. And so a power comes into your life that is far greater than the ego, greater than the mind, greater than your thoughts. And that is required to become free of the ego. Is all that is required to become free of the ego is to be aware of it. Since awareness and ego are incompatible. Take that down. The question would have been for you, what are some emotional patterns you have seen in your life or still see? It's patterns. The beautiful thing is it keeps happening so that God can let you know that this one ain't the fleeting thing. This one keeps happening. This is a pattern. And in this case, it's the emotional pattern. What is that? Only you will know. It's your feelings. It's your pattern. It's your past. No one else can amen this one like you can. Why? Because it's your unique identification. It's your life. Own it. Own it and move from ego presence and power to present to just presence, capital P. Here we go. Let's go to slide 11. We almost got one more slide after this. Listen, it says awareness is the power that is concealed within the present moment. Remember, how do we become free from ego? Is to be aware. Because ego and awareness are incompatible. As we just read. Awareness is the power that is concealed within the present moment. Listen, this is why we may also call it presence. It's the power that is concealed in the present moment. The ultimate purpose of human existence, which is to say, your purpose is to bring that power into this world. That's your purpose, to be. Mm-hmm. And this is also why becoming free of the ego cannot be made into a goal to be attained at some point in the future. Only presence can free you of the ego. And you can only be present now, not yesterday or tomorrow. That right there will free you. Sometimes we're saying, well, how do I be present? Well, now. You can't be present yesterday. You know that you can't be present today and yesterday because yesterday's gone. You know you can't be present right here and tomorrow because right here is not here yet. Right there. All you got to do is take that and read that every day. Mm-hmm. And remind yourself, because you're trying to move towards presence power. Move towards presence, being connected and reconnected. You're connecting this to God and moving towards presence power. And once you do that, you already know presence is only that can free the ego, and you can only be present now. You cannot be present on yesterday or tomorrow. I'm saying, God bless this person who made that so simple. So nobody can get that. Anybody can get that. It's just pure truth. Here we go. Only presence can undo the past in you and thus transform your state of consciousness. How is that? The way presence will undo your past is because in presence, in order to transfer energy, you have to take energy from another day or another moment to bring it here. You can only transfer something that already exists. But what presence does is it transforms. It transforms it because what it does is it loses me story, my story, and then now it's transformed because presence has transformed it in redemption to a redemption story. How do you know? Because whatever that was, and whatever you thought that thing was going to do to you, you here right now. That's how you know it didn't win. It's already been transformed. All you gotta do is tell yourself, okay, well, whatever I thought that was, I was wrong about that. And if you can accept it right there, you know what you can accept? You're gonna be wrong about some other things too. You're gonna not know some other things too. But I am who I am. God says, I'm going to be present with you. And I'm going to show you how to live in the moment right here. Not the cliche of it. You got to live in the moment. People say I got to live in the moment and don't live in the next moment come, they living in the past. I'm trying to tell you how you live in the past because you got energy from the past. You're not living in the past because you with the same people. You live in the past because you with the same energy from the past. If you don't transform it, you're going to transfer it. What is God's goal? That we transform this and transcend this. And this is how God is going to eliminate the power and the devil, who is the authority of the world in the air or whatever. I can't even think of scripture right now. But the bottom line is we're gonna take over the air. We're gonna take over these airways. What are the airways? Wind. What is wind? Spirit. What is spirit? Energy. That's how we take over these airways. We reclaim it for God by transferring, not transferring the energy, but transforming and redeeming that old ugly, nasty, messy energy into light. That's what you want to do. And when we do that, and all of that authority and dominion is put under our feet, meaning, let me say this, under Christ's feet, because of what we're doing, God said, the Bible said, and when that happens, Christ is going to hand that king completely over to God. And all these other things we read about in Revelation is going to happen. But what is God waiting for us to do? Take over these airways. What airways? Energy. Stay out the past. The only thing that's traveling with you is not the event, it's the energy. If you live in the moment and you don't let old energy come into this moment, you have reclaimed the time, you have reclaimed the energy, you have reclaimed the air, and you have redeemed, changed, transcended, and transformed. That's why you got to renew your mind. What's that? That thought. Once you have that thought brings some energy in there. Old thought, here come the old energy riding in on that old thought. Sometimes you're able to tell the thought, I ain't thinking about you, but before you know it, energy is there. That's why you have to make that one obedient to Christ. That's what you're gonna make obedient to Christ. The event is gone. Come on now, let's get free. Here we go. Last one. So what's the crisis? Where do we start? There's a crisis. The crisis is in identity. It's an identity crisis. John said it this way about the Lord. You see that picture? There's a light on. There's a bulb on with all of those other bulbs turned off. But listen to this. Pay attention to the picture. The bulbs are in the room. They're just not on. The goal is the bulbs turn on. The bulbs are there. But now the bulbs are not providing light to the world. This is the crisis. And this is the crisis we stay in because we don't know the difference between, we do more humaning than being. Let's read this. This is the Message Bible, right? This is the crisis we are in. God light streamed into the world, but men and women everywhere ran for the darkness. What you run for? What darkness? The comfort of ego. Ran for the temporary. Ran for the satisfaction of these senses, taste, smell, all the things that comes with this flesh and that will leave with this flesh. Man ran for that to find his and her or her identity. God light streamed into the world, but men and women everywhere ran for the darkness. They went for the darkness because they were not really interested in pleasing God. There it is. There it is. See, we still trying to force light and darkness to dwell together. See, now I'm gonna give it another name, essence and ego. Can't happen. Can't serve two masters. Something is going to be stronger. God will keep it. I'm telling you, you're not gonna win. Go ahead and keep thinking that you can rubber dub with the mindset of this world and all those ego manifestations everywhere. The world, it's easy to pull somebody down than it is to pull somebody up. That's another lesson Ron told us years ago. You ready to believe that again? Listen. They went for the darkness because they were not really interested in pleasing God. Nope. You're interested in telling your story. Some of us are interested in our voice being heard. Ego don't care. If your ego voice get heard, you still a light bulb in the room with the lights out. Light came into this world. God light straight into the world. But men and women everywhere ran for the darkness. Ran for that familiar. They went for the darkness because they were not really interested in pleasing God. Everyone who makes a practice of doing evil, addicted to denial and illusion, there it is. Oh, wait a minute. See, every now and then we think evil. I ain't trying to hurt nobody. Okay, let's call it denial. You're addicted to denial and illusion. Hates God like it won't come near. Fear and a painful exposure. That's the crisis. You know, when I think of this, and this is why, because I've had a blessed morning. I got to go praise God for it. Is this, you know, there's a scripture where Jesus talked about those Pharisees because they were buzzed, but the light wasn't on. Because Jesus came and healed somebody on the Sabbath day. They are so sold out to their tradition that they miss the big picture. Why are you mad? Why are you bothered? What are you standing on? What are you so identified with that you can't even see the love of God in a room? You can't see, Jesus kept trying, even his disciples. You know, hey, look, these people are doing this, but they ain't doing, Jesus said, hey, what you doing? These people are not against me, they're not against me, they're for me. They don't have to say it, be You don't have to recognize that. Recognize me. Recognize love. Recognize light. But that ego got you. That ego has so many of us. God light has entered the world. Jesus was not happy when people didn't, when people missed it, we all missed the big picture. God didn't come to just restore the earth, he came to restore the world. And he gave us these suits right here. So we can navigate this world. We sure can't go in space with these suits. You need a space suit for space. He said, now when you get there, don't you worry, don't you try to be in front of nothing. Be present. Don't try to be in tomorrow. God said, I got you yesterday, I got you tomorrow, I got you today. Just trust me. Trust me. So listen, thank you for joining me. And all of us, the Holy Spirit for sure, for this book discussion / awakening / freeing of present power. I'm so thankful today that God will get all of the mileage that he intended to get out of these bodies by moving us into the space of being. Love you, and I beat you too.
I'm done messing with my